Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Paint With Me Live. My name is Brittany Lewis, and I'm a professional graphic designer and illustrator. And Sundays is the day that I set aside to work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And this Sunday, we're taking a little bit of a side step from that. But before we do, I would love to share with you guys the progress that I made on this particular deck, where we are so far, and what we will be doing moving forward as we complete this deck, typically on Sundays. So before we get into today's live stream, please do me a huge favor and hit the like button. If you like live creation videos, if you would like to support me in any way, shape, or form, that's probably the easiest way to do that. If you like the art that I create, I do have a online store. Pieces are selling out pretty quickly. Everything that I have online except for the canvas prints are available to ship next day. So if you see something on there that you like, be sure to grab that up while it's still in stock, and we will have it out for you next day. Now the canvas prints do take a little bit longer because I ship those out to order. So as you order them, we have them made and then we ship. So they do take a little bit longer, but they're always free shipping on the canvas prints. So if you see one, especially from this particular collection, those are going to be available on my website, as well as ways for you to contact me if you have a project that you think I will be a good fit for, because my books are open. So hey TN ladies, so happy to see you. Real happy to see y'all. Don't forget to say hey in the chat. I would love to see that you're here and know that you're here as we move through today. So today we actually have something very special that we're going to be working on after I kind of explain what we got going on with the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So I have completed, I think, the Five of Swords. I say I think is because I did a little bit of detailing on the character in the background, and as I'm looking at it, I don't know how I feel about it just yet, but for the time being, we're just going to count it as complete. I have signed it. I have actually prepared the print file for it, so it is ready to go. I'm super happy with it. Aside from that little spot, I think I might have to go back and tweak. I don't know yet if I want to spend too much time there or not. But this card is based on the Rider-Waite-Smith system, which the whole deck is based on. So this card represents winning at all cost, a mental conflict as well. And so rather than have a clone version of the source material, I really wanted to do something unique to this particular project. So I used the deity Kali as well as the Agoji warriors from the Dahomey people as a backdrop for our main character. So I love the energy of this Kali image, or this image representing the goddess Kali, and that was something that I knew off rip that was what I wanted to do for this card. And so I think I managed and pretty much encapsulated the feeling that I wanted to for this particular card. I really wanted to tap into that feminine rage. So that was very, very important for me as I was moving forward in this particular illustration. I also again used the Dahomey women as a backdrop, so that we had a historical sort of significance to it as well. As in terms of the people that she's fighting, I just made up some people. I actually used the characters, the costuming, which goes back to the Knight of Cups as well as the Four of Cups. So we kind of have those drawbacks and those ties into those particular cards that have been completed before. So this is the 45th card completed for this project. I'm really happy with just sort of the number that we're at. So that means that we have 33 more cards to go. But just as a reminder, let me show you what the other fives look like. So we have one more to complete. We have the what do we have? The Five of Pentacles to complete, but I have not yet. I know I've been saying this for a little while, and that's probably actually the reason why I kind of took so long on this particular card, is because I was kind of giving myself more time than I probably needed to finish the Five of Pentacles, but I still ain't got it done. But I want to show you guys the Five of Cups. So this is the Five of Cups from the same project. We worked on this particular card as well as the Five of Wands at the same time. So this is the Five of Cups. This represents loss. Hey, Draw Sketchbook, I love your new icon. Come on, what's that? Coffee mug? No, hot cocoa mug. Come on, hot cocoa mug. So this is the Five of Cups from this project. We finished this earlier this year, and then I also have the Five of Wands, which we finished about the same time, a little bit afterwards. So we're making our way through, right? So at some point, I'll have the Five of Pentacles completed, and that'll wrap up the fives, and then we'll move on to the sixes, which I do have planned and sort of sorted through for the most part. I just need to draw them out and move forward. But today, we're going to be working on a book cover. Now, this is probably out of the blue. This is something that I actually started on Wednesday. I went through the process of thumbnailing this, so I'm going to turn off all of my layers just to give you guys a better idea of what we have going on with this particular illustration, and then I'll kind of give you a little bit of backstory as to why we're working on this today as opposed to the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and sort of the process of designing for a book cover and illustrating for a book cover. So I'm going to turn up my sketches here. Now, Wednesday stream, we started with this with thumbnails. So we started with thumbnails, and I had an idea. Ideas for me typically come at random moments, right? Generally when I'm first waking up or right before bed, I'll get them in the shower, I get them on the drives and things like that. The idea behind creating this book cover is that at a certain point, and maybe I'm giving a little bit too much away, but we're just gonna go for it so you can kind of get an idea of why I'm working on this particular project. So as a service provider in graphic design and illustration, I like to work with independent authors and small publishers. In doing that, I'm generally creating book covers for them. I'll do children's books. I've done plenty of like comic book covers, things like that, all kinds of illustrative work as well as graphic design. However, as things move forward and we're sort of moving into this wave of AI sort of taking over, but there's still a group of people who are really against it, right? But they're looking to hire artists, but they may not necessarily have the budget to do that all the way like custom work, right? So for an illustrated cover, generally you might spend $1,200 or more depending on the caliber of the artist that you're hiring, their experience and expertise. You can always find cheaper artists out there. There's always going to be a spectrum of price ranges, but they can get pretty expensive pretty quickly. So my solution to that is to create what I'm calling templates right now, and I have not yet figured out if that is the word that I'm going to be using moving forward, but right now I'm working on a series of templates. The idea is that you'll have access to professionally designed covers. They just won't be like specifically custom, like you won't have the same customization through the consultations and all of the things that go with hiring me for an artist, but you'll still sort of have that quality product that you'll be able to customize to your particular story. So that leaves a whole range of things that I can create, and I've always had the idea that for me success is being able to create whatever I want to create and then be able to sell that and offer that out to the public. So this is one way and one step in which I can achieve that level of success, because that's what it means for me. So in that, I'm working on a series of templates, right? Now this will be an ongoing thing because as they sell, I'll create new ones. Now the thing with these templates is that unlike your Canva template or something like that you will order from other companies, these are one of one, right? So if an author purchases this particular book cover, that's it. Like they'll be the only one using this particular book cover. There won't be like 20 authors with the same one with different titles. It will very much be an exclusive experience, and so that's where we're working on. So I woke up with this idea in my mind. I was like, okay, so the covers I've designed so far for this particular aspect of my business have all been very thriller oriented. They've been dark, right? Hey, Draw Sketch Me, thank you so much. She said that's a great idea. Thank you so much. So they've all been kind of dark. This one is also dark in terms of color palette, but I wanted it to feel like a sort of coming of age. Again, keeping in mind that it is generic to a degree because I cannot design for a specific story, but I can kind of design for a specific story trope. So in this, I wanted to do a coming of age. I wanted it to feel slightly magical so that if someone was writing a story about, you know, somebody coming of age, that's kind of what it would feel like, right? Now, during our Wednesday streams, I came up with the thumbnails or some thumbnails for this particular cover. I think we made it to the point where I had gotten to the blue part of the sketch and I had some rudimentary outlines for the faces and all of that. And then after that stream, I continued to work on it to flesh out the character. Now, when I'm designing for illustrations for a book cover, unlike the cards, which is full of like the whole thing is filled up with illustration, you might have some negative space here and there, but we're pretty much still telling a visual or leaning into visual storytelling. When it comes to a book cover, we don't necessarily want to overcrowd our illustration. So it looks like a whole lot of blank space, but I want you guys to bear in mind that this is for a full book cover. So again, with the templates, because everybody's story is going to be slightly different, the measurements are going to be different. So I've worked out how to deal with that and all that. I've been really working this year, right? But just to have something to sort of put on my website, as this becomes an actual thing that people can purchase and download, I've gone with like this just broad range of book cover size, and then for each person that buys the cover, we'll tailor them for them so that they have an exclusive experience. I don't know how quite to describe it yet. We're working that out, but they'll have a little bit of tailoring to their specific story. So in that, I don't have to fill up the whole thing with illustration, because I have to remember that there's going to be some graphic design involved. I need to have room for a title. I need to have room on the back for our authors to put in their blurbs. So there are only a few elements to this illustration that need to be done. I've already sort of started on it. So we're gonna pick up where we left off. So that's where we are today. Again, this is something that I'm sort of I've put a lot of thought into, because again, I'm sort of noticing the shift in how creatives are being hired, right? We do have sort of, I won't even say the competition of AI, because I feel like the people who are using AI to create their graphics or their illustrations and things like that probably wouldn't hire a graphic designer or illustrator anyway. However, I do want to sort of make it where if someone can't afford sort of the premium custom like consultations, we're talking and zooming and I'm tailoring things specifically to their needs and their stories, I want to have something fairly close to that so that they can have the same quality and style. So all right, so what I've done so far, again, we started with the thumbnails. I actually did, before I added tighter lines and things like that, went through stages with this. So I started with a blue outline. Now see if I can show you guys what that looks like, and then we went from there. So this is what our blue is looking like. So started here, I was like, okay, this is kind of what I wanted to look like, and then layer by layer I started to sort of build up this image and build up this character. I would change things where they needed to be changed, tighten things up where they needed to be tightened up, until I got to the point where I was actually painting the image. All right, so we're going to turn all this back down, and I am going to show you guys where we are in terms of color, and also what I'm doing in terms of color, because I'm taking a slightly different route from what I would normally do and have been doing in the past. And I'm really excited to see how it's, how you guys, or what you guys think about it as we move forward. So I am actually going to be working on this particular project with a color palette. Now there are some artists that I see that I really like. Yoshi Tani, y'all hear me talk about her a lot. I really like her art, but she works with color palettes very intentionally. I've seen some other artists work with color palettes, meaning that they go to websites, or they'll put together a collection of colors and then they'll limit their illustration to those colors. So because their art a lot of times is quite different in style than the way mine is, the challenge was to figure out how I could actually create the way that I create under the restriction of a color palette, and then continue moving forward. So this has been a bit of experimentation, because this is not for anyone in particular. There's less pressure, right? So there's a lot less pressure to sort of get it right and all of that. I have a lot more freedom of creativity to move forward through this, and so this is where we at. I'm real happy with the way that it's coming together so far. So I'm going to turn my sketch down, and then we're going to just move forward. Right? So where I left off was in her neck area, her hair, we'll work on that, and then I will add some implications of her hoodie, but I'm actually going to be leaving this orange space fairly under rendered so that I can put the author name there. So yeah, this is something that I have been again working out for the last month or so, maybe even a little bit longer than that, but I've actually intentionally been working on illustrations and designs for about a month, just kind of getting it ready to go for launch, so that again I can offer that somewhat tailored service, right, without it being like the full-on exclusive bespoke experience that people get when they hire me one-on-one. And it's fun. That's the other thing. It's been a whole lot of fun. I've actually been using some of my photography in the book cover designs, which is nice, because as I am licensing these out to other authors, I don't have to worry so much about the ramifications of using something that may have been free to use at the time that I downloaded or used it, but those rights may change, and so I don't want to have to deal with that. I want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And so it's been a little bit of a learning experience, and also it just kind of gives me an avenue to exercise that idea of success that I have, which is to create whatever it is that I want and just find the audience to enjoy and purchase those things that I create. So yeah, we're rocking and rolling. It's been a real interesting year compared to years past. And I will say, I've had this year, and specifically this past week, has been full of confirmations that I don't know. I sometimes we forget who we are, right? Sometimes we forget just how awesome we are. So I won't say always, in the last 6 or 7 years, I've held on to the notion that I'm not great with writing artist bios, which is crazy because I write really well, right? So I was like, I don't know, I'm not great with artist bios. I went to a workshop and I was like declaring it like I ain't good at this. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'm doing, this, that, and the third. And I remember it came from about 2018. I had applied for 2019. I was applying for grants and public works projects, and I was having to write artist bios. And to me, tailoring your artist bio is just as important as tailoring like your resume for different positions. I may not mention certain things in my artist bio if it is going to like a theater troupe versus something that might go to a sci-fi exhibition, right? So the things may change. The baseline of it is the same. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I illustrate and paint, all of those things, but I may change the verbiage depending on who it is and I'm sending this bio to, right? So recently I got into another art show. What I know, man, it's been been cutting up this year. So I got into another art show and I actually had to fill in the bio for it, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, okay, so I can't use the same bio that I used for the Civil War event. So let me go back and see if I have one that like kind of fits. So I found an artist bio from 2018. Now remember, I'm applying for grants and things like that, and I was getting rejected out the yin yang. So much so that I was thinking that it was maybe I ain't good at this bio thing, you know, and I started to again carry that belief that I wasn't great at it, and it sort of shaped how I moved forward in applying for certain things because I was getting so many rejections. But then I went back and read it. I was like, holy crap. At the time, now I be forgetting some of this stuff. I've done so much in my lifetime, I forget a lot of stuff. So 2018, I was very heavily in the comic book space, right? So I was doing lots and lots of fan art comic book conventions, but that was also the time that I was doing a lot of comic book covers. So I had done a lot, right? Some of the covers that I had done were for a company called Vortex that is located in Nigeria. That is international artwork, right? At the same time, I had been a part of an exhibition. I forgot all about this. So I've been telling y'all this my first time in a museum, which is true. I was like, I ain't been in no art shows, but I had been. 2018, I was in a speculative art show in France. I had met someone at a convention earlier that year, and he saw some of the art and he asked if he could show it in the in this exhibition in France, and I was like, yeah, I forgot all about it, right? So it wasn't until I went back and read that 2018 artist bio that all of that was spelled out. Not only was it spelled out, but it was beautifully written and it sounded impressive, and I was like, holy crap. You know what I mean? I was like, I ain't as bad as I thought I was. Like, I ain't doing too bad around here. And so just sort of having those moments of I don't know, I guess clarity or remembrance. I don't know what the adjective would be to describe what that feels like, but it was certainly a boost because we can go into these projects like the templates, and I start to have these ideas like, oh man, I don't know who I am to do this. I don't know what people are going to think because this is a service that I'm offering, and I don't want it to feel like a cheap experience because it's not going to be a cheap experience. And you start going through all of this spiraling, right? You start to forget that one, it's a great idea. Like John Sketchbook says, great idea. I think so too. It's like, shoot, it solves a problem where people who may not, again, be able to afford a certain service can still have access to high quality illustrations, right, or high quality designs, and it can still feel custom to them. No one has to know that it was a template, right, or something that was pre-made is probably more accurate. No one has to know that. But you get to thinking like, oh man, I don't know who I am to do this. And then I was like, man, I had art all over international waters and everything else. So I just started to remember that you're gonna be all right. It's gonna be okay. But we have those moments sometimes where we just kind of forget. And I don't want y'all to forget. Sometimes you got to go back and look at some of them old projects you've done, some of them old pictures and memories and things like that you've accomplished, because my goodness. Now I'll be 40. Now this is a new week, so I'll be 40 on the 21st. I've been talking about this all year because to me this is a big old birthday. So I'll be 40 on the 21st, as someone who is 40, and I may not yet be where I would like to be, and I may not even know what that looks like just yet. I just know aspects of it, right? I've still accomplished so much in my lifetime. Even as someone who dropped out of college at the end of my junior year because I got my job before I got my degree, and I was going to school for the job, so it made sense to me. Right? It makes sense to stay if I got the thing I'm going for, right? So I did that. Even having to learn some lessons the hard way, even having to teach myself some lessons, having to go through all of these ebbs and flows, and sometimes comparing myself to other artists and their careers and all of the things that they've gone through and accomplished. Sometimes we can kind of beat ourselves up and overthink certain situations unnecessarily, when all the while you had art in France. You know what I mean? You had art and published in Africa, and all of these different accomplishments. Even if it hasn't for you been in France or in Africa, whatever the thing is, we've done more and we've accomplished more, I think, than we give ourselves credit for. And so we have to remember, sometimes it takes those little signs in order for us to be reminded of just how awesome we are. So I hope y'all are remembering for yourselves just how awesome you are. Even if you're trying new things, even if you don't know what you're doing, right? I'm here to tell you, don't nobody know what they're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing, right? We're all just kind of figuring it out. Even me doing this particular illustration, now I have a time lapse because Clip Studio will record the time lapse sort of automatically of me doing this. The first iteration of this painting didn't look this good. Right? I was trying to stick so closely to the color palette that I was using too brighter brights in the wrong areas, and I was just really rusty and it wasn't coming together until I peeled back. I took a breath, right? I was like, hey, hold on, let's chill out, let's figure this out, let's go layer by layer, let's build it up, let's have fun. Remember, this doesn't belong to anyone yet, right? So we don't have to worry about being perfect or sort of worrying about revisions or anything like that. I'm the only person I have to answer to when it comes to this particular illustration. So let me just chill and enjoy the process, right? So we have those moments. Sometimes we have to be reminded just how awesome we are. So what I'm doing now is just kind of adding in her hair. I have not yet decided if I'm going to make her headphones the same orange as her hoodie, but I am again sticking to this color palette, and that's fun. Right? So again, I see a lot of artists do this where they'll kind of go and download a color palette and they stick primarily to that palette. But I do know that oftentimes those artists have a slightly different art style. So me trying to figure out how that works for me has been a lot of fun, right? Just seeing, okay, if I am trying to aim for a much more painterly style, how does that work in terms of being limited to 5 colors? So the way that I've been navigating that in this is that if I'm working with the darkest blue, right, and that is the base for the entire illustration and for the skin of my character, rather than limit myself to that very dark blue and that very light blue, I take that base color blue and then up in my color palette at the top where it's hue, saturation, and value, I'm not changing the hue or the saturation, but I am moving the scale of the value up and down. So we get the same color, we just get it at varying degrees, right? So we'll get a darker version of that color and we'll get a lighter version of that color. And that's how I've been navigating, and I like it so far. And as a matter of fact, when this idea for this particular illustration came to mind, I saw her as blue, right? Or I saw her sort of like, y'all remember the movie Belly? How they had that sort of blue scene? That's kind of how I saw this particular character looking. Now, because I didn't model this after anyone, I did model it after the girl with the pearl earring, which was painted by Vermeer, and I think it was in 1645, and I'll show you what that illustration looks like. That was kind of the pose that I was going for. However, I wanted to give her a slightly different expression. So in my reference panel, I'll show you what that looks like. So this is the girl with the pearl earring. Again, I believe this was painted in 1645. I used this as a jumping off point, but I did not necessarily want to stick to this, to like the angle of her face. She's sort of looking to me in a little bit of a mischievous way. I didn't want the expression for our main character to quite feel like that, but I did like sort of it was just a starting point, right? This was my jumping off point. From there, I went and visited some illustrations that I had done back in 2018. So now we're back full circle, right? So these were some illustrations I had done just sort of from imagination, and I challenged myself to do like a mini sketch a day for like 10 days. And I think I did 10 portraits. It was like a 10-day challenge. The first couple I did from imagination, and then from there I started to use references. Some of them I would paint, some of them I would sort of do sketching in. These are completed in Corel Painter. Right, so I was learning a new program, and I was also sort of challenging myself to practice faces. So I wanted to sort of lean into this. Now, when I was actually drawing the character that I'm working on, I had them flipped, right? So I had them flipped around just to give myself an idea of the shapes of their noses and sort of their jawline and all that. And then I also used the app Handy, which is an app that you can download. And I have Android, so I'm pretty sure it's available on the Apple iStore. What is it? Apple Store or something like App Store. There it is. The App Store. But Handy is an app that I highly recommend because that allowed me to get the lighting right? So I don't have to do a whole lot of guesswork on the lighting. And then from there, it was just a matter of placing things where it looked right. Right, placing the nose where it looked right or where it measured right, and placing the eyes where it looked right or where it measured right, and then I would just go and tweak and go from there. So that's where we are. So yeah, it's not going to take me very long. Now after this, once I get done with the actual illustration aspects of it, what I will do from here, just in case you guys are interested in illustrating your own book covers or sort of learning to illustrate covers, for me, my process is the same no matter what I'm working on, but specifically for this cover, what I'll actually do is I will turn off the color background, and I will export this without a background at all, so it'll be completely transparent. I'm keeping all of my elements and aspects on separate layers, so that again, as I'm selling this as a template, hey Black Z2, and as I'm selling this as a template, I can kind of move and rearrange things to fit whoever's buying the template. But for the most part, this is going to be one solid piece, so it will be only the girl and the moth, and I will take it into the cityscape. There's a cityscape, so it'll be the girl, the moth, and the cityscape. I will take this then into Affinity Designer, and then I will add the writing, and I will also do some hand-drawn stars. I'm only going to do that in Affinity Designer because it'll be easier for me to tweak certain points in it, and then that'll be it. I'll get the files ready to go up. When someone purchases the template, they'll let me know the size of their book in terms of like how tall and wide everything is, the number of pages that they have, and then that will allow me to determine how big the actual full book cover is. If they want it to be ebook only, we'll tailor that for ebook only, and so on and so forth. So I've been working this out, right? So I'm super excited for the way that this is going to turn out. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I would encourage you guys that are into illustration and graphic design, things like that, to consider doing templates, because again, the reason that to me it is so important is because people may not be able to afford, and I ain't gonna say everybody's not able to, because there's plenty of people who are, and thank goodness I'm able to work with quite a few of those. But I do recognize, and I've always recognized, that there are going to be people who deserve the same level of experience and expertise who may not necessarily be able to afford, again, the full like $2,000, $4,000 packages. We want to be able to provide something for them to enjoy and have the same sort of high quality as the next person. It ain't got to be like Canva quality. Don't have, it could be as tailored as you want it to be. But I think that is an avenue that is worth exploring. It is certainly one that I'm going to be exploring here very soon, and I enjoy it. It reminds me of, in 2023, I was at a conference called How Design Live, and in How Design Live, now I was there representing the Graphic Artists Guild, but I'm also there as like an independent creative, right? A creative entrepreneur. And so I hadn't been to any design conferences or like professional development conferences at that level at that point, right? And so some of it I was a little bit out of place with, and as well with graphic design, some of the people that were like very well known, I didn't know who they were. Right? So I was just mixing and mingling with whoever was around and wanted to talk and like share their experience and expertise with me. And so I remember there was a point in this conference, I sat at a table, and I think the table was specifically for marketing, which is an area of my business that I do struggle with. That is just the honest truth. It is challenging for me. And so I haven't quite figured out the best way to do that. And so I sat at this table. I didn't know who was running it. Right? I had no idea. But there was this little lady that was sitting there, and there was a few other little ladies sitting there, and there was some younger people and some, older people than those little ladies. And so we got to talking, and I'm introducing myself, and I met a lady by the name of Elise Bennett. I didn't know at the time that Elise was the person who was running the table, but when I tell you, that was one of the sweetest people I ever met. And I was telling her that my experience is that most of the people that I worked with were people that had never hired a graphic designer, illustrator ever, right? Which inspired the series that I have on this channel called Hire Like a Boss. That is intended to give those people information so that as they move through these spaces, they sort of know what to expect, and they can tailor their expectations to that, right? To what to expect, right? So anyhow, I was telling her, I was like, okay, I'm at a point in my career where I love helping these particular clients because I like being able to set the bar for them so that when they move on to the next professional, they know they know how it should go, right? But I had gotten to a point where I just could not afford to work with those people because the budgets were often much lower than what I'm sure I could get or what I knew I could get at that time. But those were the people that I favored. And I remember that she gave me the idea. She was like, there's nothing wrong with working with your, those types of clients, but you have to figure out a way to tailor it to them or figure out a way to balance it out. Just like you want to go for the higher clients, of course, you got bills and stuff to pay, you got things, you got trips to take, you know what I mean? You got things you want to accomplish monetarily. So there's nothing wrong with going for those higher caliber clients and also finding a way to service the ones who may not again be able to afford those higher caliber projects. So for the longest, I have been trying to figure out how to do that, right? I've been trying to figure out how to do it and how to do it in a way where I'm not burnt out in the end of the experience. My clients are happy and they're getting something that they can use moving forward and can feel proud of and all of that. And then one day it just dawned on me. Matter of fact, it dawned on me as I was working, coming out of that artist workshop. And so again, being in the presence of other artists and kind of hearing how they move through their experiences helped me out a whole lot. And so here we are, right? And so that was one of those experiences, like you never know who you're going to run into. And it's okay to sort of be vulnerable and be honest with where you are in your journey because you never know who's willing to help you and who has the right advice to give you at that time. And that's really how it worked out. And so I had been on, I think I ended up taking Elisa's class. She has a marketing class called, I think SMP marketing or something like that. The SMP program. And so in that, it's sort of a collective and a community of people who are also trying to get to a certain point in their marketing. Using tools to do your research, different tools to do your research, how to connect and use LinkedIn, which is a site I can't stand, be real honest with you. I definitely underutilize LinkedIn because I don't understand it very much, right? And I cannot. I have not found a way to authentically use it. I can't figure it out, and it's just, to me, I don't like it. But how to leverage LinkedIn and how to communicate with people and network in different spaces and to sort of speak about what it is that you do. And so I had no idea that was who that was, right? Until, a little while into that conversation, and I was like, oh, okay, she in charge, right? Same with, there was an author by the name of David C. Baker. He was just kind of chilling at a table, and I was like, hey, I really like what you said in your talk. And he was like, well, yeah, just email me and I'll send you a free copy of the book. And so you have to be at some point okay with being a beginner, okay with not knowing everything, okay with learning from scratch, okay with being vulnerable even when it feels embarrassing, even when it feels like you should be, in your mind, you should be further along in your life and in your career as you are at that moment. It's okay, right? I feel like sometimes we're on this imaginary timeline and we feel like at a certain point in our lives we have to have certain things accomplished, but life doesn't always work out that way, and you have to kind of be okay with the decisions that you've made up until that point. So much so that you have to be all right with just not knowing what you didn't know. Right? So, and when it comes to business and things like that, a lot of what I know now came from trial and error. It came from having clients that ran me ragged. Right? So I had to create systems and things like that balanced it out, so that I set professional boundaries and that I'm still able to deliver at the quality in which I want to deliver, but I ain't like running myself in the ground to do that. And so a lot of that came from trial and error. A lot of that came from bumping my head. Right? And so you'll find ways to make life and all your choices work for you. You just have to be okay with where you are in your life. So I had to have that reminder as I was looking at that artist bio, because I swear to you, I would have told you in a heartbeat I ain't good at writing these. Right? And it's also wild to me how one experience kind of shaped how I thought about myself for years. And again, the irony is I'm a strong writer. I'm a very strong writer, and that's not to toot my own horn. I'm a super strong writer. And so just to have that notion and to go back and read something that I had written about myself in the capacity of the artist bio, and it to sound so impressive, and I was like, holy crap, I forgot all about all of this stuff. Right? That means a lot. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves, ain't nothing wrong with being confident in who you are and bragging about it a little bit. Right? That's something that I struggle with, I think, because when I grew up, the people who had or were like the well-to-do people weren't necessarily the nicest of people. And so you grow up thinking that if I get to a certain spot, whether it's financially or like in my career, then I'm either going to be looked at the same way that we were looking at those people, or I'll lose some part of myself along the way. And that's not necessarily true. One thing that I had to come to the conclusion of, when it comes to wealth and when it comes to success, it only amplifies who you are inherently. If you're an asshole and you get money, you're going to be a rich asshole. You know what I mean? If you're a kind and generous person, when you get money, or you get to a certain elevated space, you'll continue to be that person, right? And you'll hopefully strive to continue to be that person. So it just kind of you kind of have to change the way that we look and think about a lot of things, or I had to. And all of this is coming up within the last year or so of my life, and just sort of figuring out things, because again, nobody knows what they're doing. We're just all sort of figuring it out and doing the best we can with what we have. All right, so what I'm doing is just adding more details to her hair. I noticed that she needed a little more contrast on her right side, right? And so I wanted to add that in as we move forward, and I'll add spots of shadow and things like that. Again, I'm not, because this isn't for anyone specifically, I have the freedom of just enjoying the process, right, without the stress of getting it right for a client. So in that, again, it's a whole lot less stress. Now, when it comes to these headphones she got on, I have not yet again decided if I'm going to go with the orange color, or if I'm going to go with one of the other colors that we have in this color palette. I think I want to go orange, because the way that I see the words playing out in the stars that I'll be drawing in later, I want those to be the yellow that is a part of this palette. So limiting myself with this palette has been a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys have done that yet. Right? Working within the palette. I'm like, this is the first time I've done it with intention. I do find that I am drawn to certain colors and use a lot of colors over and over again. But this is the first time that I'm like, okay, these are the 5 colors that I'm going to be sticking to. And this is what we're going to do. So, because I don't know how this is going to look just yet. Now, quick color theory lesson. Orange and blue are complementary colors, right? So they will either dull each other out, or they will amplify each other. Because these are 2 different values, I feel, maybe not, I don't know. We're going to see how it does, right? So it's either going to look real bright, or it's going to make the blue in her skin look very dull. And I'm not real sure how this is going to go. If we don't like it, we can always change it, right? We also have a black color that we can kind of lean into. Now, I did try that black color in her face, and I wasn't happy with it. So I think we're going to go with this orange. I think the orange looks good. It does vibrate very brightly against the blue. And then we'll add details to it as we move forward. And I might need to turn my sketch up, because I can't really see. Because there we go. Make sure I'm drawing inside the lines, right? And we will move forward from here. So today, again, as I'm talking about confirmation and things like that, I actually came across a thread where the question was, what was one decision that sort of changed your life, right? And for me, it was deciding to be an artist. That changed my life for the better, I feel. I was actually on track to be an attorney, specifically a corporate attorney. And I laugh because there is no way in the world. I couldn't see it. Now that I'm older and kind of have hindsight, I think I certainly made the best decision. But that decision came from reading a John Grisham novel, and I looked up which it could be, and I believe it was Street Lawyer or something like that. But I remember, and I don't remember the particulars of this story. I just remember that when I saw the cover, it looked familiar, so that's why I'm thinking that's what it was. But this book was about a corporate attorney, and in this book, John Grisham does a really good job of detailing like what lawyers go through, right, or what they experience and the types of conversations that they have and the things that they do. And as I'm reading the story about this particular corporate attorney, it becomes abundantly clear that this is not what I want to do with my life. And I was like, that is not the thing for me to do. The same year that I read that book, thankfully, I had that was my first black art teacher, Mrs. Owens, and I was in the 11th grade. And I remember like it was yesterday. I don't remember what we were doing. I feel like we were drawing our classmates, so we were doing like figurative work. And she looked at my art that I did of one of my classmates, and she was like, I really like how you draw. I was like, oh, word, thank you, Mrs. Owens. At that time, I didn't think anything of drawing. I remember I did a comic book thing at the library recently, and somebody asked me, when did I know I had a talent for it? I don't think I do. Right? I don't think I have a talent for it. I think I just have a skill that I never stopped developing, right? And so at that time, that was the first time that I ever thought about art as something that I could do beyond just drawing every day. Because at that point, I thought everybody drew, right? I thought this is what we was all doing when we got bored in our notebook. I know a lot of the guys in middle school would always draw like the Dragon Ball Z characters and all this. I thought we was just all drawing. I didn't think anything of it. I thought this was what we did, right? But Mrs. Owens saw something in me, and I thank her to this day. She is the reason that I am an artist to this day. She saw something in me, and I went to a school that didn't have a whole lot of funding, so we didn't have art classes beyond Art 1 at a certain point, right? It was one of those, it was a charter school, so up until I want to say I got to 7th grade, they had lots of different classes. So they would have like art 1, 2, 3, and 4 and all of this. And then somehow or another it lost funding or something happened. And so they were only able to do like the baseline classes. So I didn't even have art 2. So I ended up taking art 1 twice with Mrs. Owens, my 11th and 12th grade year. And so in that, she allowed me a lot of times to take more time on my paintings, right? She would do an assignment where we had to pick a painting from an artist and we had to replicate that painting. And so I remember doing one by his name is Ellis. What is this man's name? Ralph Ellis, maybe? Is it Ralph Ellis? Hold on, let me look it up. I feel like it is Ralph Ellison. That's it. Yep, Ralph Ellison. So I think so. Anyhow, somebody. Right, so I picked this painting that I still have to this day. I need to get a frame for it, but I still got this painting. So in this painting, it was a lady by a tree, and she was in a red dress, and I was painting it, and she gave me what looked like watercolor, and she said it was watercolor. When people see this painting, they ask me if it's gouache. I have no idea. She told me it was watercolor. I'm gonna stick with watercolor. But it's painted extremely thickly, right? So it looks like gouache. But anyhow, I was working on this, and everybody else had done their paintings and illustrations and things like that. And I hadn't finished mine. She let me go on through the next couple projects working on this painting just so that I could finish it. And when I put it up again, I didn't think a whole lot of it. I was thankful to have the extra time, but it was just something I wholly enjoyed doing. I've always enjoyed drawing. And when she taught me how to paint, I really like painting, right? And so we had this program. We would do these like concerts and things like that, but they had set up an art gallery in the cafeteria, so we were able to display all of our art. And people were so impressed with this particular painting, and I think then it really clicked. I was like, okay, I might be all right with this. You know what I mean? I might be good with this. So she nurtured me that those 2 years that I had her as an art teacher in Art 1. she took me under her wing. Now, in that, what she did encourage me to do was to study graphic design. And I think that because she was an older woman, of course, she had her own experiences. She painted and things like that and was at that point an art teacher. One of the things that she was like, well, you're going into graphic design, right? I was like, okay, I guess, I had no idea what graphic design was. And that's a whole other story because I was doing it and just didn't know that that's what it was. But she was like, okay, so you're going to study graphic design, right? Or are you going to study, just kind of encouraging me and pushing me in that direction. And that's why I ended up studying graphic design. But as I moved through college and I took different classes, so I started college early in high school, did dual enrollment. Once I got to my first major university, I was taking not just my design classes or classes required for my design degree, I was actually taking other things. So I took lots of art history classes. It was so good and fascinating to me. I took both the required art history classes. I think I took a African art history class. I took I feel like a mythology class, which was linked to art history. Took all kinds of history classes because I loved it, right? I would take all kinds of drawing classes and painting classes because although sure I'm going to study graphic design because that's what they told me to do, right? But I also really enjoy painting, and my ideology was, okay, I know that at a certain point I'll be getting student loans, so if I'm going to be going into debt, let me at least study something as my main sort of form of study that I don't know about because I didn't know anything about graphic design, and let me take these other classes just for fun, right? Just to get the credits or whatever the case is. So I looked at my transcript recently and I was like, golly, I was in all the history. I'm talking about African American history, African history, African art history, and all of the history classes I was in because I loved history. All the art classes I was in because I loved art. And so I do remember before I left and got my job in design, working at a sign company, I was considering double majoring in painting. So that was something that I love to do, and I learned how to use oils that year. I believe I had a teacher by the name of Elizabeth Edwards. She still paints, I think, to this day. I saw her a couple years ago and she was excited that I was at the art store, and I was like, thank you, Miss Liz. Right? So anyway, did all of that. But now that I am sort of in the professional space, I am very happy to have both skills. Very, very happy to have both skills. I had come across someone asking if design will help you learn to draw. It will not help you learn to draw. Most designers don't know how to draw. That is a field of art that you can get into even if you're not very great with drawing, right? But there are some overlaps. So there's contrast and there's hierarchy and there's grids and composition, and all of these things sort of overlap over all of the disciplines, right? So I'm super happy with the abilities to be able to do it. Super happy with the clientele because it becomes a main source of income, and it also allows me to still be creative, right? But in that I can add things like this illustration, right? And I can tie in that illustration and graphic design, and it becomes like this beautifully yummy, like full circle. Right? So anyway, study all the things, man. If you're interested in something, don't let being a beginner hold you back. It does get a little bit nerve-wracking when you're in spaces and it seems like everyone is ahead of the curve, but you do have to make peace with wherever you are in your journey. That is something I've learned over the last few years, just being at peace with where you are, being at peace with the decisions that you've made, because those were the best decisions that you could make at that time, even if they were mistakes, right? Even if they were mistakes, it still worked out so that you can be wherever you are today, right? All right, so what I'm going to be doing is just filling in the rest of this as a flat, just like I would the rest of my illustrations. You're just doing a book cover, that's all. It's the same process. I start with a thumbnail, I tighten it up with the sketch, I get to painting. I do, however, when I'm doing things like this where it's not necessarily based on anything else, for me, I have to sort of see it first, right? So this was an idea that I could see super clearly in my mind. One day I woke up, I was like, ooh, that would be good. Right? That would be a good book cover, so let me do that. And from there, again, I'm thumbnailing and I'm working out the kinks and all of that. And the sketching also allows me to work out the kinks. Because this is going to incorporate graphic design, I had to keep in mind where the words will be placed, right? And then we just go from there, man. Make it a reality. You have an idea, don't wait on the perfect time or the perfect moment, because there's never going to be a perfect moment. There's always going to be things that we have to do. All right. So this is where we are so far. far. There's going to be an earring, so that's why there's that weird patch under her headphones. There's going to be something there. But this is where we are on our character so far. So join me Wednesday if you want to see sort of the conclusion, if this is not done already by the end. But if you want to see the conclusion of how I wrap this illustration and design process up, join me Wednesday for Bring Your Own Project Live. I'm going to wrap it up here. We've been here for about 50 minutes. These last few streams have been pretty short. I ain't gonna lie. We ain't been doing it for as long, but I'm really happy to be able to share other sort of projects that I'm working on, right? And this is one of a few. So the other thing that I'm doing is a self-portrait, which is a birthday present for myself. I do have the references for that finished. So I asked my husband, I dressed up and everything. Like I put on, well, y'all see it. I'm gonna paint it. You guys will see it. But anyhow, I had my husband we set the stage and I had him take the pictures for me for reference. What I will do with those references is I need to composite them and add some things to them so that whatever the reference look like is what I will be painting. It has a story to it. It is the first time since I want to say 2022 that I'm painting a self-portrait that I feel like reflects who I am at that time. The one from 2022 is actually the death card from this project. So if you have not seen that, let me show you. We ain't looked at the Cosmic Gateways Tarot in a minute. Let me show you what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot is looking like. Now, again, you've seen this. This ain't going to be news to you. But if you're new here, this will be brand new. Right? So this is how the Cosmic Gateways Tarot are looking like. So the Death card was the last sort of intentional self-portrait that I've done. Now, I did do one earlier this year. But that picture was from 2018. So it was a really old image. So I have not done anything that I feel like reflects Brittany today in a really long time. Now, my avatar for all of my social media is a self-portrait. And then I used to do them quite frequently because it's a good way to practice faces, and I feel like it's a good way to capture who you are in that moment. So this self-portrait that I'm working on is going to be a painting, a very large painting, right? I don't know if that makes me vain or not. I don't know. It don't matter because it's getting done anyway. So it is going to be, I want to say probably a 30 by 40, which sounds huge, but I have the stretcher bars for it. It's either going to be how big do I want this? It's either going to be a 24 by 36 or a 30 by 40. Something like that, right? And the reason it's going to be big is because the painting that I did earlier this year, back in April, was the first time I had done a large painting in years, right? Like almost 20 years. And I enjoyed it so much. It was like, normally the biggest painting I would do, especially for clients, is like a 16 by 20. That's the most people get that size. I'll get some people from time to time get slightly bigger pictures, but for the most part, people stick to that size or smaller. So being able to sort of do something much larger and sort of going through the motions of painting and adding details much larger was such a nice experience. So this self-portrait is going to be big. Right? I haven't yet done like the drawings for anything like that, but I do have the image in my mind of what it's going to look like. So that's going to be coming up soon as well. In that, I will kind of record the process. Now, I do have a vlog that I have not yet finished editing from back in April, from when I was working on the painting for the museum, which is the red painting with the ancestors and the little boy. I don't know yet if I'm going to put that out because I feel like I didn't record any of the process of me actually painting because I was trying to get it done real fast. So I don't know what the footage looks like and what kind of story it'll kind of shape into yet. Maybe I should just edit it and then decide. We'll see. But anyway, for this portrait, we'll get more behind the scenes looks at how I compose the image, what I'm thinking about when I sort of came up with the composition and all of that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. It is not going to be done in time for my birthday, which is again on the 21st. I'll be 40 years old. But it'll be my present to myself. So without further ado, I think I overtalked it. I tried not to, but I hope y'all are having a good day, and I hope that you guys have a good and prosperous and happy and creative rest of the week. Until Wednesday, peace.